Welcome to Bobby Owsinski's Inner Circle. I'm Bobby Owsinski, and this is a show all about music, music production, and the music business. My guest today is Roy LaManna from the video distribution platform Vydia. First of all, you may or may not know David Lowery, the tricordist, is his blog. He's a former leader of Camper Van Beethoven, and he's been a strong opponent of what's happening in the streaming business, basically saying that songwriters are not getting a high enough royalty. And it's certainly true, songwriters are not getting nearly as much as they used to in the older days of downloads and especially in physical product. However, royalties for master recordings are a different story, and the rates are relatively reasonable, although certainly not as high as everybody would like. That being said, there's still a lot of money being made online on streaming networks. Now, David Lowery and his tricordist every year has a breakdown of the royalty rates that are being paid for master recordings on the various streaming networks. And he recently posted where he looked at 30 different streaming networks and the payout for an artist's catalog. So the payout for Spotify was 0.0037, which is down about 16% from last year. Apple Music was pretty high. It was almost double that. It was 0.00783 per stream. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up, and of course you don't get anything for radio play. Amazon was also pretty high at 0.00740. YouTube was way down. It was 0.00074, so way down. And Pandora, 0.00134. Tidal actually paid out the most to artists at 0.01. That's 1.2 cents, almost 1.3 cents per stream. Now, this particular artist found that 51% of their streaming royalties came from Spotify and 23% came from Apple, which is up considerably from the year before, at least for Apple anyway. Now, it always sounds like I'm an apologist for streaming networks, and it's not the case. I'm a realist when I look at this. And also, I look at it from the standpoint that, wait a second, sometimes a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and the analytics can get screwed up very easily. So in this case, he was looking at only one catalog from one artist, and that artist had 200 songs that were being streamed and 200 million streams. 200 million sounds like a lot. Yes, it is, but in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. This is 200 million across 200 songs. Now, think about it like this. 200 million on one song is a minor hit at most. And now we're getting into the billions for a major hit, for a worldwide hit. So we're talking a million a stream, and that's hardly anything. Now, here's the other thing, though. Different artists get paid different rates, and here's why. On some streaming networks, don't forget that you get paid from two different tiers, a free tier and from a paid tier. The paid tier always pays a whole lot more than a free tier. So it depends on how many of your streams come from which tier. If you have a lot of fans that are listening on the free tier, then you're going to make less money. Now, it's also the same thing when it comes to where are they located? Where are they listening from? So for instance, if you have a lot of listeners in Yugoslavia and they're only paying a fraction of what people in the United States pay, so instead of $9.99 a month, maybe they're paying $3.99 a month. Well, of course, you're going to make a lot less money. So every country pays a different rate. If you have big fan bases in countries that don't pay a lot, then, of course, you're not going to make as much money. So when we look at just one catalog, it's very easy to get a skewed viewpoint of what's going on there. And again, it's one of those things where you'd have to look at hundreds of artists. You'd have to look at major artists and B-level and C-level artists to really get a feel for what that payout is. So the moral of the story here is whenever you see something that says the royalty rate from Spotify is X, look at it with a grain of salt because you never know exactly what that data is showing you. If you have any questions or comments, send them to questions@BobbyOwnerCircle.com. Check out my Hitmakers Club for access to the Private Mixers Facebook group, monthly deconstructed hits, mixing workshop, and Q&A webinars, For a short time, access to my core training module bonus. Go to hitmakersclub.com to learn more. Now, there's something I just spied that I'm conflicted about. So I'm going to bring it up here, and you can tell me what you think. There is a luthier in Vancouver, Joy Guitars, J-O-I, and they're making custom guitars from materials gathered from Jimi Hendrix's first Seattle home. That's the home he lived in as a child. Kind of interesting. They're using African blackwood for the sides that come from the bedroom. The neck come from the floorboards of the house. The fret markers come from nails from the house. The sound hole rosetta from paint chips from the floorboards. Now, all this is sanctioned by the Hendrix family, but I wondered to myself, is this exploitation or a collector's item? The name is Harmonic Hendrix Home Guitars. Harmonic Hendrix Home Guitars from Joy Guitars, J-O-I. Now, it's one thing if it was Jimmy's house that he lived in as an adult, but this is the house he lived in as a kid, as a child. And even though the luthier is supposed to be top-notch, I wonder about this. I'm very conflicted. On one hand, I think, wow, this is really cool. I'd like to have one. And on the other hand, I think, wow, this is really a money grab. They're only making 10 of them. I couldn't find a price anywhere, but I bet they're not $1,000. I bet they're pretty expensive. So anyway, let me know what you think about this. Exploitation or collector's item? My guest today is Roy LaManna, who is the founder and CEO of Vydia, which is a music video technology platform that allows artists to distribute to networks like MTV, Fuse, BET, and Nickelodeon. They also let you publish your videos to online platforms like Vivo, YouTube, Dailymotion, and Facebook. Vydia also helps artists to monetize their videos while protecting their digital rights. Artists who use Vydia include Fetty Wap, Post Malone, Jimmy Buffett, and Def Leppard. Roy gave me all the background on Vydia, as well as some interesting video facts in our Skype conversation from his office in New Jersey. All right, well, let's go to the beginning here. Where did the idea for Vydia come from?
I mean, it's weird because, like, you know, ideas like having a startup like what we are now versus like, you know, what we were when we first started, you know, or like, you know, almost like two entirely different companies, because there's been like a constant evolution and, you know, technology itself moves really quickly. But, you know, the first iteration of Vydia came from, essentially I was doing video marketing. You know, I ran a video marketing company called Trendsetter Media Marketing. You know, the company still exists, so it was very well. And I was kind of looking for like, you know, the tech aspect that would replace me, right? And so like what we used to do was we take the video and we used to promote it out, get it like played on different like editorial based sites. And then, you know, but there was like a delivery requirement. You always had to constantly like upload and deliver, you know, video files. So, so actually, you know, on my Trendsetter site, you know, I put in, we built in like a video delivery mechanism where you could like upload the video, and then choose your destinations and where you want to distribute the video out to. And then we would do that, and we would charge you like, it was like part of the fee structure that we would actually like charge you as part of the marketing service. And long story short is that ended up like within the first year, almost like outpacing, you know, the consulting business. And then I broke it out to its own website that I built myself, which is like a WordPress site. It continued to build from there. And then, and that was like, you know, let's just say like, that was like fast forward 2 years later. And then, from there I was like, all right, well, you know, this is its own business now. And so I went out, went around to some investors, raised a little bit of capital, about $300,000, from people, just kind of saying, hey, I built this thing and I think there's an opportunity within the market to, you know, to make this thing happen. And I was fortunate enough to find some people who, you know, thought I could do it. And then I just kind of spun it out. I essentially took everything I learned within the 2 years of running it as part of a division of my marketing company to essentially rename the company, you know, create like a different like corporation and then grow it. So that was around December 2013 when we first closed our original financing.
What makes Vydia so special?
You know, I mean, I think what makes it so special is that there's a lot of fragmentation. within the marketplace of being able to kind of monetize and protect your rights for your visual content. So most people, one, don't understand how, the copyrights associated with their content works. And so, you take something that's insanely complicated and you kind of break it down to very simple points, and it's kind of like a wizard base, like asking you like, hey, do you own the visuals? Do you own this? And it kind of, you go through a process and then we can assert those claims for you. And then the other aspect of it is that, it is because it's so fragmented that even if you kind of knew and had a deeper understanding or some sort of like legal background that you could understand this, it's still, it's a process that you would have to go through many different companies to do. And so, we make that process, far more streamlined and efficient.
Your background is as a musician, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I originally started. Just like most people in the music industry, it's like, we were, I started like playing guitar, being an artist, and then quickly, I mean, it didn't really last too long. I mean, by the time I was like 19, 20, I realized that I probably had, a better career on the business side of things, and I still wanted to be involved with music. And so, so I kind of started switching over and got into, video production. Was like my first kind of go at it, was like shooting and editing like digital video.
Vydia then is able to distribute to a number of different platforms, right?
Yeah, I mean, we connect to like, we have partnerships with Facebook, we have partnerships with Instagram, with YouTube, with Vivo, all different platforms that are, monetizing, this creator's visual content.
And does it matter what format the creators upload?
No, I mean, that's part of what we do, is that it's essentially, it's a single upload. And then, as long as the file size is large enough, we could reformat that file into like whatever it needs to be.
Well, that's pretty cool. So the big thing though is copyright protection. And does that actually mean that you're collecting royalties as well?
Yeah, I mean, so like we're moving towards a streaming world right now. So what that means is that you have a very small amount of revenue associated with each stream, right? So I was just talking to someone, just earlier today, my previous meeting, and we're talking like, you're talking about like 0.3 cents per play, like a fraction of a penny per play. And so the only way to actually, make any sort of money is to multiply that very small number by a very big number, right? So you're talking about millions of plays on the official and the UGC version, multiplied by like a dozen different streaming platforms. So you might have, so you basically have the small per stream play. You have to have a lot of plays over, so if you multiply that against like, let's just say 50 million, multiply that by 12 different platforms, and then it starts adding up, and that means more money. What it also means is that you need a technology infrastructure to be able to collect this thing and maximize the efficiency of the collection. So like what most people don't realize is that like there's a lot of instances where you're uploading stuff, and because like the metadata is incorrect, because the reference files is incorrect, because there's conflicts or overlaps or any of this other stuff that kind of is like a technical bug within the system, that prevents revenue flow. And so when you're preventing revenue flow, it essentially, stops monetization. So, are we, collecting or making more money? No, but we are actually, we are collecting more revenue on behalf of our creators, but it's because we're maximizing, the efficiency of the process. So if you're uploading something to YouTube, like we're claiming it in view one, as opposed to like, like the normal kind of window where someone might make a claim on something, which is like a couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm. Are you taking a piece of the revenue that you're collecting?
Yeah, we have a rev share. Yeah, we have a rev share with with our creators, and it varies from deal to deal. It could be anywhere from like 20 to 35%, depending on what the situation is.
I see that you have 3 different audiences that you're going after. You're going after just straight video creators and agencies, and of course musicians. I noticed that lately your profile in the music world has been a lot higher, and Vydia's profile has been a lot higher. Is that the number one audience that you're looking after right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's the number one category when it comes to video, in general. So you look at like video, it's, a lot of it is driven by music. You look at like the top Instagram stars, and it's like either the Kardashians or like musicians like Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber. When you're talking about a UGC category, which is like user generated content, so people uploading like wedding videos, vacation videos, montage videos, even like videos of them in like bars and clubs, they always have a background in music, which requires essentially a license. And so music being just the largest category in terms of audience size and in terms of like, licenses, it's definitely a big focus for us. And me having my background in music, it was just kind of a no-brainer.
You mentioned before about metadata, which is a subject near and dear to my heart. One of the problems in music when it comes to streaming is the fact that with record labels, usually what happens is the person with the least experience is the one that gets the job of inserting all the metadata before it gets uploaded. And with video, there doesn't seem to be even that. As you said before, if you don't have metadata, you can't get paid.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of, it's funny because like the questions you're asking are so common that like it's literally stuff that I was dealing with today. I mean, one of the things I was dealing with today is that we had a user of ours that had a hit song, generated hundreds of millions of streams, and then because there was no the metadata wasn't correct, there was, once we cleared it up, I mean it resulted in a six-figure back pay. So as far as that person knows, without any sort of clarity on it, they're just like, well, streaming sucks. I'm not making a whole lot of revenue, but they don't realize that there's a lot of errors within the system that need to be cleared up.
Okay, so what's the number one error or omission when it comes to metadata?
I mean, most of the time I think the number one thing that like the number one misconception that most people that exists within the marketplace is that people think they don't understand what performance rights societies do, Mm-hmm. And so like if they're saying, okay, like you want to collect your publishing on Spotify, let's just say, right? Mm-hmm. They go, okay, like, I have it covered because I signed up for ASCAP and BMI. And it's like, no, well, ASCAP and BMI in the US are performance rights. They're not sync rights or, so like there's other rights that are associated with it that you could be collecting on the, on the composition side that have nothing to do with, ASCAP or BMI, And so, usually what happens, just to kind of answer your question, is that like, they'll sign up and put in their information, ASCAP and BMI, which will collect a portion of the revenue, but it won't actually collect all the revenue that's associated on the composition side for like YouTube, for instance. For YouTube, the majority of the revenue is like, is in the sync category, not in the performance side.
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, speaking of metadata, one of the problems is the lack of standardization of metadata between the streaming networks. So is it the same way in the video networks as well?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own kind of internal system, and that's a lot of the problem that we're trying to solve is that, like, we want, we have the metadata within our system, and then as you update it, it continuously communicates with the APIs of the streaming networks. So in other words, if you went in there and you changed the field of metadata and hit save, like it would then push that information to YouTube, to Spotify, to Facebook, to wherever. So in other words, like you're not trying to change it in 5 different locations or 10 different locations. You're updating it within our platform, and then our platform is communicating to the outside platforms.
Just out of curiosity, how long does it take to get updated on the various platforms? Does it happen quickly, or is this something you have to wait for?
No, it happens quickly. I mean, if you want to push an update right now, I mean, we have a process within our app that requires approval, So like if you're doing it, it just doesn't, I mean, depending on, we do have people that are directly, piped into the streaming services, but like for the most part, like you'll update on our platform, it'll be reviewed by a technician, and then they would deploy it out, and then it would update it right away.
Yeah, that's great. Tell me about your analytics. What kind of analytics do you provide to the user?
So right now, like, the thing that we're really focusing on is analytics are one of those things where I think that they're, to most people, completely useless. And what I mean by that is that, if you go into, a lot of times people say, okay, it's very important that I can see my analytics and see what's going on, right? Well, the problem with that is that most people are not sophisticated enough to actually be able to figure out what's going on. So if you go onto YouTube, for instance, and you said, okay, cool, what are the analytics that you care about the most? You're going to say, okay, I care about views, subscribers, and revenue, you know?
Yeah.
Or say, okay, that's cool, except for the fact that like those things are a function of other things going right. So in other words, like if you're getting views and you're looking at views as like a way of figuring out like if something is doing good or not, like like if you have high retention, for instance, and you have a lot of shares and a lot of engagement, then your views are going to go up. If your views go up, then you're going to generate a lot of revenue. So most people look at the wrong things when it comes to analytics, and they don't know really how to make sense of it. So if they're uploading something and they see it doesn't have a lot of views, they can't really drill down and put their finger on why there isn't a lot of views. You know, like I was talking to a creator the other day, and he has 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube, but now when he uploads a video, he gets 30 to 50,000 views. We used to get in the millions of views. He doesn't know how. He doesn't know why. But all that information to figure out that problem is in the YouTube dashboard. He just doesn't know how to find the information to solve it. So if something is going wrong that leads to him not getting the views that he needs, which leads to him not getting the revenue he needs. But beyond views and revenue, he can't figure it out, right? And so our approach to analytics is not to showing that information, because we don't feel like that people could necessarily, one, if they really want the information, they can go to the platform and that's made available to them. Two, they don't, most people don't have the sophistication to actually analyze that information. And the way that we do it is that we actually, rather than be redundant and show information that is already available to them on an individual platform, our approach to analytics is actually to analyze, which means that like when you're uploading a video and the video is not performing well, you get one score that is called the Vydia score that you can look at, and it'll give you like a quick overview of whether or not that video is doing good or bad. From there, it'll give you like a quick breakdown of why we feel like this video is performing badly, and then some actionable items that you could easily do. So for instance, like videos, the same video might perform very differently on YouTube as it does on Facebook. And so we might tell you like, hey, this video is not performing well on YouTube, but we do advise you that, to put it on Facebook and promote it because it has a high retention, it has a high, share rate. Like it definitely will work better on this platform. So like, those are the kind of things that we're interested in when it comes to analytics, is actually like helping them make better decisions on like, on when and where to post their video content.
That's cool. That's very cool. Well, you mentioned views before. So views are measured differently on each platform, and you get paid differently depending upon the view length, right?
Yes and no. I mean, so like something like Facebook, views are considered like, the view counter goes up if, you're a couple seconds into the video, and then YouTube is like a little bit differently. They're calculating as like, you need to kind of make it through a certain percentage of the video. And again, like those view counts are kind of like, I mean, they're mostly for vanity, right? I mean, they're just saying, okay, we got 1 million views and we feel awesome about it. But like, the way that it's monetizing it's a variety of different ways. If it's subscription based, like YouTube Red, it's basically you take the whole pool and divide it out by, the whole payment pool and divide it out by, everyone's kind of individual market share. If it's YouTube and it's ad based, essentially, it's where, there's different ad units like TrueView ads or pre-roll ads or banner ads. And then you're getting, a percentage of the ad rate sold, which is going to be different from territory to territory. And it's also very cyclical. So, Q4 pre-roll ads are going to sell significantly higher than Q1. Whereas like with Facebook, what they're rolling out is like mid-roll ads, which means that you can have a lot of views on Facebook because their view counter will go off after like a couple seconds. But if you're not, if you don't have a high level of retention, which is like, you're aiming for full retention on Facebook, then you're not going to generate a lot of money. So, for Facebook's monetization program, they're favoring videos. Like, so for instance, they'll put a publisher or, a creator into their monetization program now that has maybe averaging 20, 30,000 views, but is getting full retention over someone that's getting 15 million views. but viewers drop off after 30 seconds.
Yeah, but if they're mid-roll ads, and mid-roll ads are most important to them, then it would seem that the shorter the video, the more that would work in your favor because you get to the mid-roll ad faster, right?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think the thing is that, like, again, like, not focusing on views, focus on retention. It's really like the focus is saying, regardless of the length of the video. Now, keep in mind, this does, like, I don't know if that really is affected by view length, because, I mean, you could say, okay, like, I mean, when you're watching, like a popular TV show, like if you're watching, I'm going to say like Game of Thrones, but that's on HBO. But like if you're watching like a very popular like network TV show, like let's just say This Is Us, right?
Mm-hmm.
That program is 22 minutes long, and people are getting through, what you would consider like a mid-roll ad, which are commercials. So like so that doesn't necessarily mean. And then if you're watching like MTV and you're watching music videos, you're not necessarily like, you might be changing the, that was always the issue with MTV on why they stopped running music videos, was because, people would watch, 5 music videos and then they would get the commercial and then they would leave and not come back. They weren't staying because there was nothing on the other side of those commercials that is like, we got to keep them in, So really the length of the content isn't necessarily like, extremely relevant. It's more so like, are you providing content that someone like is willing to sit through an ad to get to the other side of it? So it's a lot of it is, I mean, it doesn't really work that well with music, but it does obviously work well with original content, more kind of episodic stuff, things like that.
Okay, that being said, you've obviously been exposed to a lot of different videos in a lot of different genres across a wide spectrum of creators. Is there kind of like a magic formula for what works?
Not necessarily. I mean, generally speaking, there are certain things that are like best practices on developing content,
Mm-hmm.
And it really depends if it's like music or non-music, for like any sort of like non-music stuff. I mean, they always tell you like, developing content quickly, or frequently is very important, kind of honing in on the frequency of which content is produced. So, you don't want to produce it. I mean, really what we see is that the people who make the most money, generally speaking, produce the most content, And so I was saying like, there's 2 ways you get to 1 million views, right? You could, upload one video and get 1 million views, or you could upload 1,000 videos and they all get 1,000 views,
Yeah.
And in both ways you get to 1 million, right? And so the more content you create, the bigger the snowball effect. I mean, other than that, kind of knowing your audience, knowing what they like, what they don't like, stuff like that, adding in like kind of ritual based stuff, or like addressing the audience, call to actions with asking them to subscribe or like your page is always helpful. There are some best practices, but generally speaking, if there was one thing I could tell someone, it would be to create the most content, create a lot of content,
Mm-hmm.
Over a period of time and keep it consistent, So if you're going to stick to like producing stuff on, like some people could commit to producing content every day, and that's great. We see those people do, generally speaking, do very well. If you can't commit to something, do it like, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. So you can say, okay, every Tuesday and Thursday, new videos. And you can say that literally like within your video, like check every Tuesday or Thursday. So, but if you're going to say, I'm going to do it every day, don't do it every day for 2 weeks and then stop and then, wait a week, then do 3 in a row. Then, I'm saying I would, don't commit to anything that you can't do over a long period of time, because people just expect instant results. So if they do a video every day, they're going to say, okay, well, it's not working. I mean, most of the people that are really moving the needle have been doing this for a long time, are really committed to the process.
Well, yeah, if you're going to do a video every day, that's a big commitment, that's for sure. Boy.
And we know a lot of the people that do that stuff, that do videos every day. I mean, it's like you said, it is a big commitment, but they do it.
So you have 2 tiers. What's the difference?
Yeah. I mean, so we actually have 3 now, or we're kind of rolling out 3, which is a standard, pro, and a VIP tier. Standard is just like for people kind of kicking the tires. Pro is something that like, it just, there's some more like, we have like kind of like this Dropbox video function. So for all of the video content you're posting natively onto social media channels, we're backing up that content into the cloud and allowing you to update your rights and your metadata, right from your phone. The way that we charge for that is that, we do a rev share. Generally speaking, if someone's making, if our rev share portion is lower than $20 a year, we'll charge you a $20 a year, kind of almost like maintenance fee. If you're making, us more, as a company through our rev share split more than $20, then, we'll usually waive that fee. The new thing that we're doing now is there's more of a VIP program, which is incentivized to allow artists to kind of stay independent longer. And with that, it's like a little bit more of a hands-on, we give like marketing support. We'll finance videos. We'll do audio distribution and go to like other outlets and other DSPs. We also like throw in we have deals with like different outlets. Like we have deals with like Daily Motion, and we have deals with like Vivo and YouTube. So like get like actually like premium placement for some of our artists. So, we could do something where if you have a video through Vivo, for instance, and you're, a VIP client, that we could get it on like the front page of Vivo, as like a featured spot.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it helps. Like, it's a mutually beneficial situation because obviously, we're getting the artist some premium placement at the same time. We're helping, Vivo make, better decisions on, who to feature. And so when they're featuring these independent artists or these artists within our network, like it helps them as well. Because generally speaking, they usually have a significant audience.
I used to tell people to go to OneLoad back when that was still available to upload their videos. And the big problem there, well, there were several problems. The good thing was it would get you to different platforms fairly easily, but the bad part was there was no, well, for them, there was no monetization really. And also the rights protection wasn't there either. But it seems like you've found a way to do that and still monetize what you're doing and provide more value as well.
Yeah, I mean, so like that service that you're talking about was originally something that we wanted to like kind of compete with. And what we noticed is that like it's actually the opposite, which is why we kind of turned on its head, is that most people want to. So if you upload a video, you're going to find in most cases the same video isn't on, it isn't on. Like if you went to any sort of like YouTube creator, right? You look at all his YouTube videos, all the Facebook videos, all the Instagram stories, all the Snapchats, like generally speaking, those videos will not be the same on the same platform, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not uploading the video one place and then delivering it to 4 different destinations. What you're actually doing is uploading 4 different types of videos to 4 different platforms, because each platform has basically kind of carved out its own niche in terms of like how it fits into the video ecosystem. And so the way that we turn it on its head is that we actually, through an authorization, you authorize your Facebook channel, you publish your Facebook video, either a Facebook Live or as like a video on demand. From there, we recognize it, as the API, we pull it in, we then store it onto your, in the cloud, in your video file manager, and then we allow you to set your rights policy, which if it's just a default rights policy, mm-hmm. then that's the one that would be invoked. And so you could still take that video that you put on Facebook and publish it on YouTube, but you don't have to. And so what's good about it is that most people now want to kind of work within the native experience of these different platforms.
Very cool. Very cool. Last question, Roy. What's the best piece of business advice that either you received from somebody or you learned along the way?
Just keep moving forward. I mean, that's like the biggest thing. Like when it comes to like running a business, you only like looking backwards, you feel good about it, and looking forward, you always feel like you're always confident, but there's always like 10 different things that are on your mind, that you feel like are going to be challenges, mm-hmm. And there's things that like when they pop up, you're like, like you feel like giving up, and that's it. It's like those are the challenges that really kind of separate, the people that really make it versus the people that, that don't. It's just like, how do you overcome these challenges? And then how do you just keep moving forward when everyone else stops, And so that's kind of, I forget, I think it was actually Martin Luther King that said something like, if you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. Whatever you do, just keep moving forward. So, I mean, and I'm probably killing that quote, so maybe I'll have to look it up again. But the general idea is that you got to just keep moving forward no matter what, even if you're crawling.
To find out more about Roy and Vydia, go to Vydia.com. That's Vydia, Vydia.com. Thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@BobbyOInnerCircle.com. To listen to other episodes of Bobby Owsinski's Inner Circle, go to BobbyOwsinski.com and select the podcast tab, or go to BobbyOInnerCircle.com, or find it in iTunes, Stitcher, Mixcloud, and Google Play. At BobbyOwsinski.com and BobbyOInnerCircle.com, you'll also find a sign-up form for my newsletter and for alerts for new podcasts. This is Bobby Owsinski. I will see you next time.